Hello, boys and girls. Aunt Carole, Aunt Nikki, and I are all thinking about you during these weeks as we're doing our part practicing social distancing to help combat the coronavirus. We know that you've got a lot more time on your hands, free time, and you're perhaps getting a little stir crazy trying to figure out what you're going to do with it. And we'd like to help you with a few minutes every day by reading a story to you. And the story we're going to read to you is the story of Loony Coon, written by Sam Campbell. This is a chapter book, and it's a wonderful story. I loved hearing it when I was a boy, as my parents would read to me about the adventures and misadventures that happen with this really rascally raccoon, Loony Coon. So sit back, relax, as Aunt Carole, Aunt Nikki, and I read to you Loony Coon. Chapter 1. Trouble is Born. Loony Coon did not even wait for his baby eyes to open to get into his first batch of trouble. Ginny and I were on hand to witness this primary event of his turbulent career. It was twilight one day in early June at our island sanctuary in Wisconsin. We cautiously approached the large dead maple tree we knew to be the home of our longtime raccoon pet, Andrea. For 7 years, this beautiful animal had been friendly with us. Each season, she used this same maple tree as her home, and each season she raised 4 to 6 youngsters here, ultimately bringing them over to our island to see and be seen. The tree home, which we call Cooney Castle, stands near the water's edge on the south shore of our Northwoods Lake. It is ideal as a raccoon residence. It is beautifully decorated with fungi and lichen, and around the exposed roots at its base is a lovely lawn of cushion moss. 6 feet from the ground there is a hole, a foot in diameter, the entrance to a shallow space within which are the living quarters. About Cooney Castle is a vast forest, including stands of oak timber to furnish acorns for food, and many lakes whose shores are ideal hunting and fishing grounds for these active and clever animals. On this eventful evening, Jenny and I walked quietly to the tree and pressed our ears against the bark. "I hear voices!" exclaimed Jenny in an excited whisper. "Baby voices!" "There must be a nestful of them," I added, as excited as she. Jenny glanced anxiously at the hole just above our heads. "Oh, I want to see them. Would we dare to take just one little look?" "I wonder if it would be wise," I said, looking longingly at the hole too. "Raccoons have been known to destroy their young if they're frightened." "But Andrea has been friendly with us so long, she wouldn't be afraid. Please, may we?" My reply was to get a section of log and place it at the foot of Cooney Castle. By standing on this, I could look into the hole. I took a pen flashlight from my pocket and cautiously peered in. There in the shallow hollow was the neatest little huddle of raccoons I ever saw. Andrea, huge in size, was curled about her family, and it was dinner time for all but her. "Of all the cute sights, this one wins," I reported to the thrilled and excited Jenny. "Andrea isn't the least bit frightened. In fact, she seems pleased at our call." "Well, how many are there? What are they doing?" Jenny was on tiptoes trying to see into the hole, though this opening was only large enough to accommodate one head at a time. "They're eating ravenously. Andrea, what a family of chowhounds you have. Now let's see. I can make out 3, and there's a 4th, and there's a 5th. Wait a minute. Down there, underneath the 5th one, is still another. There are 6. Andrea, you have the limit, and what a job you picked out for yourself." "Let me see, let me see." Ginny's patience was exhausted, and she was tugging at my sleeve. Now it was her turn to step up on the log and look into Cooney Castle. Andrea was told how lovely she was and how wonderful her family was in a way that only Ginny can do. "That one is climbing out from underneath the others," she informed me. "What a darling he is! I never saw a raccoon marked quite like him. There's a little white streak on his head, and one ear hangs down while the other stands up. Do you hear all that racket?" I did. There was a sudden burst of squealing and squawking from within the tree. Well, that one with the floppy ear is walking right on top of the others, she retorted. Why, he's stepping in their faces. He disconnects them from their dinner, and are they mad? Now he's crawling up on Andrea and has his foot in her eye. In the excitement, I had climbed up on the log beside Jenny, and we bumped our heads trying to look in at the same time. There was a great stir in Cooney Castle, every resident yelling and clawing. Perhaps we're causing some of that, I suggested. Suppose we leave them alone now. They've given us a good show. Oh, you wonderful little creatures. Jenny gave them one last verbal pat as we stepped down and backed away from the tree. That one with the floppy ear and white streak is cute, she added, laughing. Why, he just trampled all over them, and his mother, too. Well, after all, if he wants some exercise, that's about the only place he can walk. It looked to me as if he just wanted to stir up a fuss, Jenny said. If he didn't get a reaction the first time, he stepped on one of his brothers. He tried it again. Look, there he is now. She pointed toward the maple tree. Sure enough, there was a young raccoon balanced precariously on the edge of the hole. Careful, Loony, you'll fall, she called. Get back into your nest. Loony Coon, that moment named, presented a comical appearance. His nose was pointed up in the air the way a cub does at his age. His eyes were tightly shut, as if glued together. His right ear pointed straight up, the left one drooped, and the odd white streak, a little touch of albino, stood out prominently on his head. His tail was hairless, his legs were weak and wobbly, his tummy seemed too large for the rest of him, and his nose sniffed frantically as he tried to get some hint of the great forest world about him. Loony Coon is the right name for him, I commented critically. He shouldn't be moving around that way for 3 weeks or more. Raccoon cubs his age don't do that. But Loony Coon had no wish to be an ordinary raccoon. He had a lifetime of mischief to live, and he wanted to get going. Even as we watched, he reached his front paw out into space, seeking a hold on the world beyond, and he lost his balance. We gasped helplessly. If we rushed to him, we might frighten him into a tumble, and if we didn't, likely he would fall anyway. That is just what he did. His feet slipped. For an instant there was a flurry of wild clutching and scratching, and then, plunk, he landed on the soft cushioned moss at the base of the tree. Before we could make a move to help him, another raccoon face appeared at the opening. Andrea gazed down first at us, then at her struggling, whimpering offspring below. Loony Coon started toward the lake in a funny mixture of waddling, crawling, and walking. Right into the shallow waters he went, apparently not familiar enough with the world to know land from lake. Quickly, Andrea came out of the hole, went headfirst down the tree, and then caught and dragged Loony ashore by his head. It was a rescue act, but it had enough intentional punishment in it to make Loony squeal. Oh, for a movie camera and floodlights, I said to Jenny. Why do such things always happen when pictures can't be made? My wish was echoed a dozen times within the next 5 minutes. Andrea took the pesky cub by the nape of his neck, her every move indicating a mixture of parental love and disgust. She lifted Loony to the tree and held him there until his tiny feet caught hold of the bark. Then, still gripping the loose skin of his neck, she slowly climbed back to the hole, forcing him to go through motions that would someday develop into the art of tree climbing. His first lesson, I commented. I've known raccoons all my life, but I've never seen that before. Look, he's up there again, Jenny cried. The woods were darkening and our penlight was losing its power, but we could make out Loony Coon struggling at the opening. In rapid order, he went through the same routine, balanced and steadily, reached out with his nose, then fell plunk onto the moss. This time, Andrea lost her patience completely. She fairly exploded out of the tree, hurried down to the ground, and snatched up her trying offspring. There was no lesson in tree climbing this time. She caught him in her mouth and bit where it hurt, meaning to do it too, and then carried him squirming and squealing back home. From the depths of the nest came more squealing. I believe Loony Coon is being taken to the woodshed, Jenny ventured. He had it coming, I added unsympathetically. The crying continued, suggesting that Loony Coon was getting spanked from one end to the other. Then it stopped abruptly, and all was silent in Cooney Castle. Just before we left, Andrea looked out at us, the picture of maternal worry and discouragement. There seemed to be an apology in her expression that a youngster of hers should put on such a display of disobedience. Never mind, Andrea, Jenny sympathized. Maybe he isn't bad, but just ambitious. Sometimes our most headstrong children have become our best leaders. I predict Loony Coon will make his mark in this world. Make his mark in it, I put in. Why, that fellow will have it scratched all over from one end to the other. And that's the end of Chapter 1. Come back tomorrow and you can listen to Chapter 2. Bye-bye.